Just so that you know, we are going to be recording this Chamber of Solutions activity, so I hope that's good for everybody. It's our usual practice because it's very helpful for those who, for whatever reason, couldn't make it today and can sort of share in some of the learning and some of the benefits of today's programme. This is a Chamber of Solutions, so it's really all about you. It's about what your issues have been, what your issues are, and the interesting thing about this one being all around sales and growth and marketing is that it really does look to the future. Over the past couple of years, I know I've been saying this a lot, but it's still pertinent. Over the last couple of years, we've had to really do so much for our businesses in terms of looking at new opportunities and new ways. You know, the often used phrase of pivoting our business to these new markets. Well, we suddenly find the whole of the world is opened up to us to a great extent, and we are in a position now where we're having to say, what do we actually do? Where are these opportunities? And with the skills shortages that the industry is facing, it's quite difficult to really say, well, I'll just go and find some new talent quickly and easily, put them on the road, get them out there, start to engage the marketplaces more effectively, because those opportunities aren't necessarily easily available. And so it's a matter of productivity as well. What's the best way, the most intelligent way that we can win? Well, you're going to learn a lot today, but we want to hear from you. What are your issues? What are your questions? So after the initial phases of engaging around these particular topics, I'd like you to think about the questions you'd like to ask. And the best way is either put them in the chat and through the good offices of Ben and Stacey, who are working alongside me today, we'll be able to get these to the panelists, or you can actually put your hand up electronically and we will invite you to ask the question directly. But if you're not asking the questions about your business, then that's not really what Chamber of Solutions is. Chamber of Solutions is all about your business, what you can do for your business. So, and everybody else then benefits from sharing some of your insights and some of your experiences. So how we're going to start this is that Victoria and Alpa, who are our resplendent panel today, are going to share a quick 5 minutes on their insights and their perspectives around marketing and around sales. And that will really get the brain cells going, get you thinking, get you wondering about your own business. And that will start to create, I think, a flow of questions and a flow of inquiries. So firstly, I'd like to welcome Victoria, who's going to tell us all about what really marketing is in the modern sense. It's almost like marketing invents whole new channels and whole new methods, but it doesn't quite lose the old ones. It just grows like an onion, layers and layers. And so Victoria's going to help us in the next 5 minutes to unpick that. So over to you, Victoria.
Beautifully put there, Ross. I love that analogy of the onion. I shall be using that in my future training courses that I run. So thanks for that. Good morning, everyone. My name is Victoria Vickery. It's lovely to see some familiar faces there as well in the audience. I am the founder and managing director of All Star Marketing Club, and we exist in my business to help small businesses and SMEs become confident and capable of winning new customers consistently and self-sufficiently. That's what we're all about. That's exactly why we are here. So I'm really pleased to be here this morning. I just want to give you, I guess, a few thinking points this morning before we get into the nitty-gritty of today's session. And the first one I want to actually start with, sorry, I've got a bit of feedback, is thinking about sales and marketing, because although today's session is predominantly about sales, you can't have one without the other. So for true success in sales, you have to have marketing. And the other way is also true. For true success in marketing, you have to have sales. You can think of any great pairing you like. It could be, eggs without bacon. It could be kids without dirt. It could be tea without coffee. it just tea without coffee, tea without milk. It can be, which I don't have actually milk in mine anymore, but it, a number of different things that you would pay. I mean, think about your own analogies there. Your great pairings, that is essentially what it comes to. You can't have one without the other. So I want you to kind of think of it. And, we always use funnels in sales and marketing. We talk about this funnel, this hypothetical funnel, but it's real. And if we think about, just a generic funnel that you might find anywhere in a textbook, so you can go and, type in Google marketing funnel and something along these lines will come up. And we've all got different ways of talking about it in our own world. So Alpa will have a different way to myself. Someone else, another marketing person will talk about it quite differently, but ultimately it's a funnel. And when we're thinking about marketing and sales, the funnel looks a bit like this. You start off with awareness. People have to actually become aware that you even exist in the world. If they're not aware of you, you're basically the best kept secret, and nobody wants to be the best kept secret, because how could you possibly get any sales if that's the case? Then coming down a little bit from awareness, we start going into interest. So they start to see you frequently. They start going, what's that company or that person actually about? And that's the stage where, they start to recognize you. They start to build up some kind of relationship with you. And then it comes down to the next point, which is consideration. They start to think about, okay, I've seen this business on a number of occasions now. They start to consider what it is you've got to say, what it is you've got to offer. And on from consideration, it comes down there then to them evaluating whether or not you're a good option for them, and onto the action, which is them actually taking a step forward towards you, perhaps in a lead or sales capacity. Now, that funnel is both marketing and sales, and probably about 2/3 of that is the marketing element. And the second part of that is all about sales. And, in that marketing element, it's going to have everything in there, from the marketing channels you use, the marketing messages, the customers that you're targeting, and so much more in between. But all of that has to come together in that funnel. So one of the things that I just really want you to have a think about as we go through today's session is, have you actually kind of thought about the fact that marketing and sales are so connected? Is that something that's registered with you yet? Because if it hasn't, then I hope today you'll use the knowledge of both myself and Alpa to be able to really think about how that needs to work for you in your business, because the two go hand in hand. Like I say, eggs and bacon, kids and dirt, tea and biscuits, whatever it might be for you, you have to think about both of them. So that's my first thought. So if that's something that you've not considered yet, please do have a think about that. It's essential for you to get any type of result in your sales and marketing. So secondly, there's something else that I find always niggles at people when it comes to the world of sales and marketing. And that is not being able to really think about what they need to say, what they need to do. And I know that there's a lot of people that are really interested in social media on here today, so this will certainly play into that. When you think about anything in marketing, you have to come at it from a value-driven perspective. If you're not offering value to your customers in both the marketing process, and I'm sure Alpa will agree, in the sales process as well, then you are not going to get the results that you want. It has to be value-led. So what do I mean by that? Well, with anything, you need to be thinking about your customer. Who is your customer? And that can be quite ambiguous for some. You're not quite sure whether it's this person, that person, the other person, and you end up going out really broadly and trying to target everybody. Now, targeting everybody is like targeting absolutely no one at all. You don't resonate with them. You don't end up saying things that they actually will pay attention to. You end up putting your marketing in the wrong places. And all of these issues really come about when you're not value-driven. So to be value driven, you need to understand your customers inside out. You need to know what pains they have, what their wants are, their needs, their desires, what keeps them awake at night, what are they running away from, where are they running to, who influences them, where do they hang out. You've got to know all of this stuff. And I'm sure, any good marketer that you've ever spoken to before tells you that you've got to understand your customer. And we all go, oh, I know who my customer is. But honestly, do you really know your customer? Have you got a written down profile? It's one of those laborious tasks, and people kind of go, I can skim that because I know my customer, but honestly, do the legwork, do as much legwork as you can, because that will be the driving force behind you actually being able to have meaningful marketing going out the door and meaningful sales conversations. You've got to get into their hearts and minds. Now, on that note, I've just said about hearts and minds. One of the most important things to realize when it comes to anything sales and marketing, and I'm going to massively simplify the human brain here. The human brain, I'm going to say, is made up of two key parts. You've got the rational part of the brain and you've got the emotional part of the brain. And I'm not going to go into any depth on that because you all know what rational and emotional is. We all have emotional moments. I think many of us with tech this morning have already had a few emotional moments. But when it comes to the emotional side of the brain, it receives messages a fraction of a second before the rational side of the brain. So when it comes to marketing and sales and how you sell, if you are going along the lines of selling features and benefits of what you do, you're missing out a massive part of the emotional side that connects with their pains, wants, needs, desires, worries, concerns. So get emotional, understand the customer. So that's really how you're going to be able to get under the skin of emotion-led marketing and sales that will help you to get results. So if you're doing, if you're always out there selling on your social media platforms, then that's not going to work. You've got to give value content. So you've got to be making sure that you are answering the burning questions and the concerns and needs of the customer at any point in time. So that's a massive tip for you there on how you structure your content in social media, email marketing, sales conversations, anything. Get under the skin of the customer. If your features and benefits led, you're going to have a big problem with getting results out of it. You've got to make a meaningful connection. So I want to leave you with that one there. And this just means a simple mindset shift more than anything. Instead of feeling like you are selling to someone, some people feel that selling is quite aggressive and you've got to sell. It doesn't have to be that way. If you change your mindset to simply say, I'm serving someone, I'm helping someone, I'm supporting someone, then you'll be in a much better position if you come at it from a value-led angle. So I want you to challenge your mindset a bit today as well. Think about, what you hear from Alpa. She's got some amazing content to help you out with today on the sales side. So think about what you're hearing and how you can challenge what you're doing. Find a little gem that's really meaningful to you and take that away with you today and try and implement that, because that will massively help you move forward. If you change one or two things today, when you leave here, it's going to have a massive impact on what you do. Small and steady changes build up over time. And the last point I want to make before I hand over or hand back to Ross is that there's something that everybody needs to know about marketing. And I know there's a couple of my clients in the audience. So if you don't know this already, then tut, but I'm sure you do. And that is as follows. It takes between 7 and 15 interactions with a brand before someone is even willing to consider buying from you. 7 to 15. What happens? People do something once and they give up. So as an example, somebody might send out an email, they don't get any results from it. So they go, well, that didn't work. They'll put out some social media posts and they'll think, well, that didn't work, so I'm going to stop doing social media. This is the kind of thing that happens. They'll advertise in a magazine once and then say, that didn't work, so I'm not going to do it again. They might, Alpa, I'm sure will cover this, they'll make a sales call and the person said, no, thanks. So they give up. Oh my goodness, this is what's going wrong, peeps. So it needs to be 7 to 15 interactions. Remember that with a brand before someone's even willing to consider buying from you. This is where marketing has to be a part of what you do, because with marketing, you manage to clock up many of those interactions before it even hits a salesperson. So it means that you can get marketing to do all that heavy lifting for you. So you're not wasting your sales resource trying to take someone from cold to sold. So that's something to bear in mind there. Marketing can play a massive part in all of this. Another stat for you very quickly, 85% of people will have done all of the, or should I say 85% of the sale will already be made before they actually speak to a salesperson. People are researching, they're going onto your social media platforms, your websites, your reviews, and everything else in between. So all of it is building up the relationship to the point where your sales call is much easier. So building the relationship instead of going from cold with a salesperson is a lot better for you, because it does a lot of the work in advance. So you need people to know you, like you, and trust you. So building up your marketing interactions, first of all, is really, really important before you hand off to, or think about making that sales call. It will make your life so much easier. And that ultimately means create interest in what you're doing through your marketing, build your brand, bring in data that you can then nurture for sales. So I'm going to leave you with that thought there. And remember that sales and marketing exist together and not apart. So that's something for you to consider today. So ask as many questions as you want around that. Ask questions about the 7 to 15 interactions and what you need to be doing. So that's it from me for now, Ross. Back to you or Alpa.
Thanks, Victoria. That's absolutely brilliant. I think you've really sort of set the scene, and I'm sure I saw a lot of people taking lots of notes. So I think that's always a very good sign. But you're quite right. The other side of this coin on marketing is obviously sales, symbiotic relationship, going from cold to gold, Victoria. And so I think it's absolutely essential. Now we're going to hear from Alpa for the next sort of 5 minutes or so, and then we'll be over to you all. So please get your questions ready, put them in the chat, share them with us so that we can then get you to ask them directly. We want to hear about your business. Alpa, fire away.
Brilliant. Well, thank you very much and welcome. It's lovely to see so many of you here today. Victoria, it's a pleasure to share the platform with you. There's so many things you said which I was smiling and nodding along with. So first of all, a little bit of background on me. So I'm a growth advisor. So my job really is to work with businesses and look at all aspects of their business to help them to get to the next stage of growth, whether that's looking at funding, looking at their sales, looking at HR, whatever it might be. But my background, ultimately, I started off selling. And my first sales experience was in the playground in secondary school when I walked past the cook who was about to throw away some big squares of chocolate cake, which had been rejected at lunchtime. So I took the tray off her and she looked at me somewhat baffled as to why I was going to take a tray that was slightly bigger than me. But I went to the playground, and despite the fact that the pupils had already paid for their school lunch, I proceeded to sell all of those made at 20p, and I made £5.50, which I kept because I didn't understand the importance of sharing that profit with the cook, because, why would I? And I gave her the empty tray back, and she looked at me and said, "What happened?" And I shrugged my shoulders and said, "I sold it." And that was my beginning in sales. And since then, I've always sort of dabbled in sales. I've always been in sales. So what Victoria has said, in a nutshell, absolutely spot on. When I used to actually work in marketing as well. So I actually worked in big tech. And one of the things that I did in big tech was I was always at every single monthly sales meeting with the sales team. Why is that important? Well, to build on what Victoria said, sales and marketing are two sides of the coin. One cannot work without the other. And when I work in a business where the growth isn't where it needs to be, the first two places I'll tend to look is the sales and their marketing. Because if they're good at sales, but they're poor at their marketing, then that's going to have an impact on their leads and the conversions that they ultimately get, which is quite important. We'll talk about conversions. But if they're good at their marketing but poor at their sales, then again, the same problem. So the two must work together. So when I worked in big tech, I was always in every single sales meeting. I had the marketing hat, and we were able to work together. So it wasn't a case of the sales team moaning that marketing never give them any good leads, because you'll hear that all the time. And it is a case of you being able to defend your corner and saying, no, you've got all of these, and looking at the sales process. So those are some of the things which I'm going to completely agree with Victoria on. The other thing she touched on was 7 to 10 touches. And she also said something about 80% of the sale is done before the salesperson even makes a call. But did you know a poor salesperson can destroy all that hard work in one single swoop? and lose that lead completely. So it's very important, if you're a beginner in sales and you put all of this effort in your marketing, that you understand there's some real good simple strategies that you can adopt that will help you to convert those businesses that are hard won, that you've taken you a long time through your social media platforms or marketing to get to a point where they want to have a conversation with you. And so number one is, it's very important you know everything about your product. Your product is what they're interested in. You've got them to the point where they are interested and they're interacting and they want to know more. So know everything about your product, know it upside down, inside out, in every single scenario it can go. Now, why is that important when you're in a face-to-face or in a sales situation? Well, you sound confident, and confidence is the one secret to sales. If you sound confident, it helps to reassure the prospect who has gone through all of this journey that they actually are talking to somebody who knows their stuff and this product is the absolute right one for them. Number two is, Victoria also touched on this, understand your customer, understand your customer's pain points. That's actually quite important in the sales point, because you've got to the point where you've understood all of their pains, but when you're in the sale, it's sometimes slightly different. You'll uncover other pain points. So you must listen very carefully to what those pain points are in the actual sales meeting, because there may be additional pain points that you come across that you have to deal with in that face-to-face scenario or telephone call or whatever that would be. Which then brings me to another really interesting ratio. When you're in a sales meeting, and this is, you've done all the marketing and you're now there, the percentage of conversation is actually quite important. It's 80-20. 80% of the time, the customer should be talking. You should not be interrupting. Your actual conversation is only 20%. You will get the most success if you adopt that rule. So what do I mean by 80-20? You should be listening. You should be asking questions. And when I mean listening, really listening, what are they saying? And what does the meaning mean behind what they're saying? Because they'll say one thing, but it could have a multiple number of meanings, particularly when you are selling a high ticket value product. So you need to really listen and understand the hidden meanings behind that. And you won't do that if you're not giving them 80% of your attention. You are not listening. So it's very, very important. And when they say something, if you're listening, you can very quickly ask a question that is relevant, which would bring them back if they're unsure in the sales meeting, or if it hasn't quite gone the way that you want. Now, Victoria also touched on this, know your customer in advance. When I'm in hunting mode, as I call it, I do my research on my customer. I have a lead. I know everything about. I've gone on to Companies House. I've checked out their company accounts, their directors. I've gone on to LinkedIn, and I have used LinkedIn like you wouldn't believe. I've looked at all their profiles. I've looked at all the key players. I've looked at every single aspect of that business. I've looked at the PR, I've looked at their social media and what they're putting out there. And often I will follow them on social media for a good week. If I've got a week or 10 days before I'm actually due to meet that prospect, I am following them on social media. Now, why is this important? Because I'm beginning to understand and get a picture of that client, because the marketing has done the heavy lifting. Now I'm the salesperson and I'm about to have that conversation. And if it's taken 7 to 10 touches for them to get to the point where they are 80% convinced to buy, they've done the work for me. So if I then do poor preparation, I can destroy that in one clean swoop. So know your customer in advance is just as important in the sales part of your delivery as it is in your marketing. More so because there's more to lose at that point when you've worked so hard to get them to that end goal of closing. The other thing that I'm going to talk about, which is also a real issue in sales, particularly with SMEs I've noticed in the past, is the follow-up. Always follow up. It is the biggest reason why people fail to hit their sales targets. I can't stress enough. If you speak to a prospect and that prospect says, that's great, I need to think about this a little bit more, I'll come back to you later, you don't allow the prospect to take control of that sales situation ever. You are in control in a subtle way. So your job is to not leave that meeting without making sure there isn't another meeting in the diary. And if you say you're going to send them an email, or you're going to send them a proposal, or you're going to ring them and you agree that time, do it. Do not be late. Treat that appointment as if it was a face-to-face appointment, which you would never want to be late for. Again, that goes back to, I'm going to call it interesting and safe, but and Victoria touched on it a little bit. When a prospect first sees you through social media or blog posts or marketing, or even if you have that initial conversation with them, they usually go, oh, that's interesting. But as that sale progresses, they're then looking for safe messages. And this is, again, where marketing is so key. So, for example, when they're going from the interesting piece, you might give them a case study that's a little bit more generic. That's to help them to move along in the 7 to 10 touches to maybe eventually want to meet you. But when you're in a face-to-face scenario with that client, they're then going to start asking you safe questions. Who's bought this product before? Have you used this in the past? What's going on in their head from a sales psyche is, if I buy from you, am I going to lose my job? Am I going to make a massive mistake? Am I going to lose a lot of money here? Are you trustworthy? So all of those things go back to the follow-up, and also importantly, how you use other parts of the marketing. So there will be a different case study or different marketing material that you'll pull out of your tool bag that you will give to that customer, which is actually much more targeted and much more safe message driven at that point, because you've already got their interest, you're there. So now it's to get them over the line. So what do they need? What reassurances do they need? And that's where the sales and marketing relationship is so important. Marketing doesn't just stop once they've opened the door for you. It is so important that the marketing team is then aware that what are the tools I'm going to need to pull out of my tool bag to help get that sale over the line. And that will be a different set of case studies, different set of brochures. It could be different set of messaging, which is why it's so important that sales and marketing work together, because we're, in the sales point of view, in the coalface, we're in front of that customer. So we will then know the sales questions the customer are asking to help get them over the line. We need to feed that back into marketing so they produce better tools for the sales team to then use to help close that deal. Number 5 is, use rejection as an opportunity. There's an old sales saying that goes, every no leads you closer to a yes. You're in the sales world, particularly the hard coal-faced sale, there's going to be more no's than yeses. It's just the way of the world. Thankfully, now with the support of marketing, that's reducing, because they've seen you 7 to 10 times. By the time they've got to you, they've already made an 80% decision that they're going to buy or not buy from you. So that's where your sales and in your rapport and everything else are very important. But even then, you might still lose, because they might buy someone else's product over you because their pricing was better, or they liked that person better, or whatever it will be. So you will still, despite all of that work, lose. It's not always 100% win. So accept those rejections. You do need to have a thick skin in sales and not take things personally. Because if you do, then you'll never want to make a phone call, you'll never want to be in front of somebody. So it's very important that you understand that. And then as you advance in your sales journey, there's a couple of things which are very important. And now I'm just talking purely on direct sales and how that impacts. First of all, managing your time effectively, efficiently. There's 2 sides to sales. There's the hunting mode, and then there's the farming mode. Now, the hunting mode, there are times when I need quicker wins, where I can't necessarily wait for the marketing machine to always get those, because it's going to take 7 to 10 touches, and that's a slower burn. So in that case, what I'm then doing is going into hunting mode. So hunting mode for me is going all over LinkedIn, looking at potential prospects, and then working with the marketing team to get out 3D mailers, and then I'm hitting the phone. I'm making direct calls with people, which is cold, and we're going to talk a little bit about telesales later. But once I've got a certain number of appointments and things in the bag, so to speak, I can't keep hunting because I've now got a sales pipeline and I've got to run them through that. So at some point, you've got to decide, I'm going to stop doing the hunting and I'm going to focus on now nurturing these contacts in the right way to ultimately get them to a sale. And you're going to find that that balance is always going to be in the sales mix. You can't always hunt and you can't always farm. So you have to sort of switch between the two and be able to do that. The other thing is the right technology. We have a lot of technology in marketing. There's HubSpot, Infusionsoft, there's some fantastic CRM systems and marketing tools that you can use that the sales funnel can fit into. But it's very important that the sales team uses those tools because that will make your life a lot easier, because you want to spend as much time in front of the customer and not a lot of time in front of the technology. Therefore, you need to have simple, easy to use technology. So whilst the marketing team will have lots of great things in place, the sales team probably want something fairly simple that they can leverage and use. But it's very important you use that technology because it will make your life easier. And also when you're feeding back to the marketing, because the marketing will also need to understand which of their marketing activities are bringing in the most results. How are the sales team finding that? If you don't have the right data in the technology or the platform, then marketing are shooting for a target in the dark. This is where the two are it's so important that they align. Number 4, I never stop prospecting. I'm always meeting people. I'm not always contacting everyone because I'm not always in hunting mode. When I'm in a networking meeting, I'm prospecting, but that doesn't mean I'm selling. That there is a very difference here. Prospecting is very much about making friends. I want to know about people. I hate when I go to a networking meeting, and networking is sales. It's direct sales. I hate when I go into a networking meeting and the first thing someone says to me is, what do you do? I actually want to know who you are. Victoria touched on this. You want to get to know that person. That's what the marketing does. You don't go up to a complete stranger and you make rapport, talk to them. How was your journey in today? Make a funny comment. Understand that person before you whip out your business card and sell them to death.
And it worked very smoothly. So we just need.
So those are the sorts of things which I'm quite keen on. So networking meetings is direct sales. You're representing yourself, and you're also marketing yourself. So you must be aware of your behaviours and how that works. The other thing is perfect objection handling. I'm going to talk about that later on. I hope someone asks about objection handling, but that is quite key, and you will come across that even after all the good work marketing have done in that sales situation. The other thing that's quite important is empathy to connect, rapport. We talked about rapport building in networking, but rapport building when you're in that sales scenario is very important. If I go back to the 80% of the heavy lifting is done by marketing and you've got a warm lead, it just takes one wrong move to knock that. So rapport building is an integral part of the communication process, and lack or absence of rapport in that face-to-face or telephone call or Zoom call will fundamentally affect the outcome of that conversation. So, don't undo the good work that marketing have done. They've got you these leads. Now it's important for the salesperson to perhaps not be a bull in a china shop, to ensure that the messaging is still matching what the marketing is saying and the overall vision of the business and the values. So these are very important. A salesperson can't just go off on their own. Quality over quantity is very important. I'd rather sell to 4 good prospects and not 20. And just use a repeatable measure. So there's so many hints and tips. Sales is such a vast subject, but to confirm what Victoria's saying, the two go hand in hand, sales and marketing, and hopefully there's a few tips there for people to have learned from.
Thanks so much, Alpa. That's brilliant. So I think we've done a super setup for our conversations, and I see that we've got quite a few questions that have come through in the chat. And I'd like to start off actually Sam Worsey, I don't know, Sam, if you want to ask your question directly. If not, I'd be happy to ask it for you. Are you coming off mute, Sam? Yes.
Hi there, hello.
Thank you, Sam. Fire away, ask your question.
Yeah, I had a question surrounding digital paid advertising. So it's kind of widely known now that it's harder than ever to get a real return on investment in social media advertising. So I just wondered if there were any thoughts about how to not necessarily tackle this, but how to maximize effectiveness when trying to advertise on social media platforms.
Very good, Sam. What's your business?
I'm South Sea Bathing Hut. We're a natural skincare company based in Portsmouth.
Very good. I think that's one for Victoria. Have a go at that, Victoria.
Yeah, it's a really good question. Thank you, Sam. And I'm sure that the answer to this will help everybody. So the way to think of it, when you're in social media, say, for example, you're advertising through the Facebook platform, even Instagram, for what you're selling. One of the things to really remember about some of the more social platforms, even in LinkedIn, actually, when people are in there, they're not necessarily in a buyer's mindset. So that's something that you've got to really bear in mind. So just step into the shoes of that person that you're actually trying to target and think about what they're doing when they're on social media. They're scrolling through, they're having a look at photos of their friends, they're catching up with people. Then something breaks that. And it might, for example, ask them to buy straight away. I mean, that happens a lot, by the way. If it happens to be clothes or shoes, I will be there and I will buy. That's just, but I'm a marketer's dream. I should know better, but I don't, and I buy everything. But when it comes to the mindset of those people in Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, do remember that, first of all, that they're not always in a buyer's mindset. They're in a discovery mindset. They're wondering what's going on in the world. So that's something that you really need to connect with. So when you're thinking about what you're putting in your adverts, it's a good idea to think about how can you get them to take a step forward that doesn't ask them to commit to a sale. So what do I mean by that? So I want you to imagine the revometer on your car. So it kind of does this, doesn't it? It goes up and down, depending on whether you've got your foot on the gas. Now, when you're advertising, or even in your social media posts or any of your marketing, actually, you have to consider where people are in the buying cycle. So we talked about the funnel earlier. If, as Alp was saying, they're further down the funnel, then they're at the stage where they're kind of ready to buy and they're asking those safety questions, as Alp was talking about. But when they're in social media, they're probably right at the top of this funnel. So you've got to think of that revometer in that you can't put your foot straight on the gas and get them to buy straight away, because they don't know you, like you, and trust you yet. And they're the things that we've actually got to achieve. So what I would suggest you do when you think about your advertising is how can you get them to take a step towards you that doesn't actually mean you're asking them to part with their money. So what does that look like typically? What you might be thinking about at a low end is, with your advertising, inviting them to perhaps download a guide. So we call them a lead magnets, and a lot of you might have heard that before. So if you're selling products, you might download a guide on why is this product good for your well-being, your mental state, and blah, 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 blah. So you might put together a guide that they'll download that's relevant to them. What that does is it gets them to take a step towards you, but they're not committing to buying from you yet because they're on a journey. They're only shimmying their way down the funnel and they're right at the top right now. So by doing that, you can then think about, okay, this is about getting, so you've got to think about what your goal is with the ad. So the ad, therefore, would be about getting data and creating relationships. Because then what you can do, you can move the conversation into email marketing, and you can very, very quickly clock up another 4, 5, 6 interactions through email marketing that will move them closer towards you. So that's what we all need to be thinking about. You have to consider where they are in that funnel and what you're actually asking them to do. And, think about that Facebook traffic that's coming towards you. And think about the objectives that you're setting out for there. That's the most important thing. So just don't take a step too far it goes like this. So often with this Revometer, we talk about something for free. It might be something low cost. So some people will have the ability to do something low cost, first of all. And what that does is it means that if they buy something low cost, they're 5 times more likely to buy from you again and buy something higher ticket. So we're taking them on a journey. So Sam, does that help you?
And was that a good, a good response?
Yeah, I think I'm obviously thinking back through all the various campaigns that we've done over the past and going, okay, that one was product based, that one was product based, that one was product based, that one was more like kind of values, company values based. So obviously I think we need to switch the balance and do more values
and again, even if you're talking about company values, do they actually give a rat's bottom about that? Like, with the greatest respect to you, what we have to remember is people are in Facebook or Instagram or Twitter or LinkedIn with a what's in it for me mindset. They're in discovery phase. So what you've got to think about is, I'm going to use another little analogy here because I just find that visually in your mind it helps. Imagine a bridge. Okay, imagine a bridge, and this bridge is not any bridge, it's a rickety one that you could fall off because it feels a bit dangerous. So on one side your customer's sitting, and on the other side is you saying, come across, it's great over here, come on, over you come. And they're going, hold on a minute, if I step onto that bridge, how do I know that on the other side, through all that mist and clouds, that my ideal future is there? How do I actually know that? So what you've got to do is you've got to think about their future. When Alpa said earlier, and she's absolutely right, the closer they get to you, the more questions they're going to have that are relevant to their safety. But right now, when you are introducing yourself to someone, there's only one thing they want to know, and that is, can you get me to where I want to go? That's it. That's all they're thinking about. They'll ask the intricate questions later that will confirm the purchase to them. But first of all, you need to show them that you have got their ideal after. If you talk about your values, fine, but make sure you talk about the values in context of what's in it for them.
Absolutely.
I hope that makes sense.
Thanks, Victoria. I think that
No
really
worries.
probably covered a lot of the some of the questions that we've seen in the chat. One of the things, Sue Pake's got a very particular question, but I think it also has a more general gist around post-COVID. How do we get people more confidently, buying? How do we turn those leads around? And particularly, she's got a situation regarding function rooms and spaces. So Sue, maybe something for Alpa. Sue, what are you experiencing?
I'm just trying to restore people's confidence in coming back to the theatre. Obviously, it's great to see the audience returning, but it's people booking the meeting spaces and spaces for hospitality just to get their customers to come back in as well. But I'm finding a lot of people that are, I don't know if you're aware, but we're a registered charity. A lot of people, I'm telling them the prices of the function suites, and they're like coming back to me and halving the price to think that they're helping us, obviously as a charity. But in fact, we have to have 2 staff in the theatre for a meeting or a function to go ahead, and I have to pay those staff. So I don't want to come across in a negative way. Obviously, I can't make a loss to us as a business.
Absolutely. Third sector have to make profits as well.
Yeah.
They're just surpluses, that's all. Alpa, what's your advice in that area?
Okay, so that is quite an interesting one. I think it's one of the things that I say is secret number 1 is never sell on price, and because as soon as you start to go down that route, you cheapen what you're doing, which is what you're finding.
Yeah, definitely.
Now, often when somebody is insisting on the price being reduced, if you reduce it, then it just means that you're going to reduce it again. So it's about being firm. It's about explaining to them about the fact that you're a charity, that you need 2 people to run the room, and it's just not feasible. Often, 9 times out of 10, if you explain your reasons why, people will back off a little bit. And if they're still insisting on a discount, you can give them I wouldn't necessarily cut the cost of the room hire. What I might do is maybe offer something else instead and say, okay, well, we'll include all your teas and coffees and morning pastries, because that will be a much more of a simpler hit for you to take than reducing the cost. So what can you offer? So the other thing you could do is actually put an offer together and say, right, the room hire is X, and included in that you get, you know, a lunch, you get this, you get that, and actually put them in packages, because then there's no room for them to want to try and negotiate that, because people love the idea of a package. So sales psychology then means they think they're getting something. Whereas if you just go in and price everything individually, what you are then leaving yourself open for is for them to want to negotiate with you. So those are the sorts of things I would probably always do. So packages, what's included in those packages, and explain to everyone, don't be shy about it. We're a charity. You know, where is this money going? Who's it helping? Right? Those are the things that if you start saying that, you almost, I hate to use the word shame them into not asking for a discount, but they feel that they're doing something good as well. And there's a lot of need for companies to do a lot more of their social corporate responsibility. So it's a great way to use those things. So, you know, by working with us, hopefully we're hitting your remit there. Some of the language you use at that early stage is almost to stop them from even thinking they can ask a discount. Yeah. So if in the conversation you've got a package, you've explained you're a charity, and you almost, you know, say to them things like, you know, and just think what this will do for your corporate social responsibility. No one's then going to turn around and say, well, can I have a discount? Because that's kind of, it's the language that you use at the very beginning with that prospect that will stop that fallout of them asking for things, and packages is definitely another one. Now, the other question you asked was COVID. I think that's going to take a bit of time, Sue, if I'm honest, you know, for people to start to feel more comfortable. It already feels like the pandemic is moving backwards because it's not so much in the news at the moment. So that in itself is also a good sign that as people's confidence grows, that they'll start to want to come out. So you may find that as the clocks go forward, that'll have an impact on the number of inquiries and bookings that you get. So try and think about the packages and the things early on, so that when you get that influx, hopefully they're not asking for discounts.
That's brilliant, thank you. I really appreciate what Victoria said as well about being value driven. So if we get meetings, I'm trying to do like a backstage theatre tour that obviously doesn't cost us any money, but it's really interesting for the delegates that are here on the day as well. So I really thank you for you both.
Absolutely,
for
Sue, and that leans back into what Alpa was saying. It's about value packages. So discounting is probably one of the worst things that you can do. It's about stack the value, stack, and that means that you often are giving away for the price things that don't actually cost you anything, and that's a really good position to be in.
Yeah. No, that's brilliant. Thank you both very much.
Thanks, Sue. We're glad being able to help. It's an absolutely essential area of activity. As a Chamber of Commerce, we know that better than anybody. Very interesting one from Simon, Victoria, which is all around the breadth of the marketing plan. Simon Green, would you like to ask a question?
Yeah, hi, good morning, everybody. We sell software services to B2B clients, and services help them drive efficiency in their business, that type of thing. So we started a sales and marketing plan at the end of last year from scratch, really, which included sort of focusing on the areas of Dorset and Hampshire, working through the Chambers of Commerce, advertising, LinkedIn posts, social media, really just to raise our level of visibility to our customer or potential customer base. How long should we keep this up? There's a lag. I suppose in the end, we're hoping to get some lead generation out of that, of course. We have got a few leads, I have to say, and which have been proving quite successful. But, it's a case of being brave. How long should we keep going before we change things?
Simon, it's such a good question. I'm not going to answer with how long's a piece of string, because that's going to not be very helpful to you at all, although that's part of the answer. But what I want you to think about is what you're doing with social media, what you're doing with, some of the activity that you're doing, networking. What I would class them as is more towards medium and long-term marketing strategies. So what I like to think of with marketing is that you break everything down. This is a really good tip for everybody, by the way. Break it down into short, medium, and long-term marketing, or not even marketing, it's sales as well. Short, medium, and long-term activities that grow your your business. Okay, so when it comes to that short-term element, we're talking about things that, for example, might be low-hanging fruit. That's, you know, the sales activity. You might have people that are sitting in a database that you can see are consistently reading your stuff, consistently clicking on stuff, consistently engaging. That's your short-term people. Go out to them and start the sales activity off. Some of your other short-term activity is indeed your advertising, the stuff that's going to get some leads through the door that you can then nurture through your sales activity. What you're predominantly focusing on right now is more of your medium to long term. So when you're in LinkedIn, as an example, you can go out and you can build relationships pretty quickly, and you could kind of try and basically speed up the process between getting to know them and selling to them. However, when you're just posting, that's not enough. That is literally just a bit of brand awareness, just a bit of awareness out there. When it comes to what you're doing in LinkedIn, you're going to have a little bit of a mix going on. You want posts going on, you want articles going on, you need to be out there actively commenting on their stuff. You need to be maybe plugging any events that you might have and be in their DMs as well, building the relationship. Now, when you think about anything, and here's the answer to that, not as long as a piece of string. The answer to this is it takes about 90 days, if not a bit longer, to get people through a funnel. About 90 days. Okay, so if you've been doing it for a couple of months already, it's time to look at, were you doing the right activity in the funnel? And if you were, then you've got probably a little bit further of a push to go. But my question is, with the activity that you've got in your sales and marketing plan there, is it the stuff that is actually going to drive them through to plop out as a lead at the other end for sales? So I have a question mark over that, actually, Simon. So yeah, I would say don't give up, because we've got clients that we teach these methods to, and they'll say, do you know what? I've only just landed this massive, great big client, and I didn't think anyone was looking at my social media, but they obviously were. They're looking on from the sidelines. Momentum is key. You've got to keep the momentum up. But I want you to think about what I said around short, medium and long-term marketing activity and sales activity, because you will have the stuff. If you need immediate sales, you need to address the short-term activity, but you have to have the medium and long-term activity going on, because they are the clients of the future. They're the ones that you won't have to work as hard for, because you're nurturing them right now for, 90 days down the line. So medium-term activity are things like, yes, your social media, building your database up, that kind of thing, and email marketing. And then down the other end in the longer term are things like your search engine optimization, your brand building, your proposition development, and that kind of stuff. So you've got to be thinking of all of them. And I know it's not easy, but I hope that gives you some kind of idea, Simon, that your efforts are not in vain. Keep going with them. There'll be an offer to have a chat with myself and Alpa at the end anyway. So if you do need some further clarity around that, then you obviously can.
Yeah,
Alpa,
thank you very much.
Coming over to you on that. Do you want to add to that?
Definitely. I definitely want to add to that. I completely agree with you, Victoria, on the short, medium and long-term goals. So Simon, don't give up on the sales and marketing plan, because it's all about the consistency. But I would say it's also about measurement. So I normally would say, with a sales hat on, what I'm looking at every activity that we've done and what are our key objectives of that activity. So, for example, if you're using LinkedIn, I use LinkedIn for posting, but I also use LinkedIn for hunting. So I actually will direct message people in a way to get them to interact with me, to find out what they're looking for, because these are your very quick, short-term sales goals that you're trying to hit. So you want to get some momentum in with your sales team. I also would say that it is a case of, what is it in the short term that you're looking to do? What is your sales target for the next quarter? Is there one? Is that monetized? So if you have an idea of what your goal is, you work backwards from that from a direct sales point of view. So, the other thing that works really well for very short-term stuff and is 3D mailings. So if you've got a database already of prospects that are, as Victoria said, interacting with you, they're responding, I would then send something like a 3D mailer. Now, what do I mean by 3D mailer? I'd send about 20 letters in the post, and with that, I'd send an item. The recent mailing I did was with Wrigley's Spearmint Gum, you know, the gun stick. I stuck one of those on the letter in the middle, and I wrote or got marketing to write the letter around that. And we sent that out to about 20 prospects at a time. And then what we did was we hit the phone and we were following up the letter. I sent you a stick of gum in the post. Did you get it? 9 times out of 10, you bypass gatekeepers. You'll end up talking to the prospect, but most importantly, you'll build rapport quickly because it's actually inexpensive, but it's quite funny, it's quite quirky, and most of the time they'll just have a bit of a laugh with you, which means that your sale is immediately easier because you've already made them laugh, and then you talk to them, and the objective of the call would be to move them along in a more direct way for the sales process. So it might be a face-to-face meeting, or it might be sending them some information, whatever that would be. So the short term is really, you know, where you should be sort of being a bit more aggressive is the wrong word. I hate to use that word, but a little bit more in their faces. And the medium and longer term goals, they are equally important because that's where your sales pipeline and the conveyor belt is being built. Eventually, you want to be in a position where you don't need to do the cold direct sales and everything's coming through on the conveyor belt. However, that said, sometimes there might be peaks and troughs, so you might want to be able to switch between the two. So definitely, you know, think about your key objectives in the short term and set yourself a sales target or a number of prospects or meetings that you want to have, whatever that would be, that you can measure against your sort of direct activity.
Absolutely, it shows the power of the measure versus the power and the linking directly to the awareness and the way those two drive each other. I think there's been a lot of chat around LinkedIn, and Sandeep has lined that up, and Benjamin has said, well, maybe it's becoming the new Facebook, and Victoria's answered. Victoria, what's the take on LinkedIn right now? Because I do know that you know, there's a lot of businesses out there who make a living out of being very successful on LinkedIn. So, or has it had its day?
No, it hasn't had its day. Far from it. In fact, it's about how you use it. Sandeep, I totally agree with you on this, that it does feel sometimes like LinkedIn is becoming a little bit like Facebook in terms of the posts that people are putting out there. And by the way, the audience is hugely divided on this. And I really think it comes down to your personality type. You know, there are those people that are much more, as we call them, red, very direct, very, you know, to the point. I'm one of them myself. So, you know, that's why I kind of feel this way. I don't like to see all that personal stuff necessarily on LinkedIn. But there's those other people that really want to get to know people a bit more on more of a personal level. And for that reason, they love that. So it's very divided. And I think that rather than looking at LinkedIn as in, oh, it's going like Facebook, you've just got to think it's a collection of individuals who have very different views on the world, who have very different ways of doing business. And then you just have to kind of be selective on how you use it. So thinking about LinkedIn, I think it's how you play the game. I alluded to it a moment ago around, you know, what to do in LinkedIn, because you've got, when it comes to, you know, any platform really, whether it's LinkedIn or Facebook or whatever it might be, you've got your core posting that you can do. You can put your core posts out there that will, as long as it's quality value content, coming back to that again, quality value content, you're going to get noticed amongst your audience there. Algorithms allowing, and that's something else we can talk about. So that's the first thing, but also you've got so many other opportunities. As Alpa said, she uses it for hunting. You can go and make some amazing relationships, build amazing relationships by just going and hunting down the right people. And if you're not paying for the sales navigator element, the premium element of LinkedIn, that doesn't mean you can't do it. You can do it no matter what you've got. So don't feel like you have to go out and pay the 70 quid per month or whatever it is for Sales Navigator. You don't. There's a lot you can do without it. But I think it's a blend of the posts. It's a blend of direct messaging and building up relationships. And also think about leveraging things like, I said earlier, you can put events on LinkedIn. If you've got events running, pop them on there. You can use your Facebook, not your Facebook, your LinkedIn company page and build that up. You can use showcase pages for different elements of what you do. But I think it's the blend of all of that. And one of the key things that I wanted to draw your attention to is it must have been about 6 weeks ago now. So I've been sending out, some of you get it, I've been sending out an email for the last 7 years called My Friday Thought. And on My Friday Thought, I can see some people nodding there. On My Friday Thought, I allude to something that's going on in my personal life and how it applies to business. And I've always sent it out via email to my database. So it goes to a few thousand people every single week. But just recently, over the last 5 or 6 weeks, I've been putting it onto LinkedIn, not as a newsletter, although you get into it via the newsletter, but I've been putting it up as, sorry, it's a newsletter, not an article, it's a newsletter. So I've been putting it up as a newsletter. Now, the beauty of doing that, of actually putting something up as a newsletter and having a regular newsletter that you send out, you can put regular content out there. Not only does it go out to your audience, but get this, it emails them as well. So you actually get a two-pronged attack. Number one, it goes out on LinkedIn. Number two, it goes directly into their inbox. How fantastic is that? So my advice would be get using some of that new functionality that's on there. It's been rolling out over time recently. So that's definitely something to look at. And also, I've been talking a lot about value content, and they have, I mean, I say it's new, it's not that new anymore, but they've got something on there now called creator mode. So go and have a look at creator mode on LinkedIn. It's built for those people like me that want to share value. And I hope like you too, because value is where it's at. So if you want to share great content, get creator mode switched on, and it really favors valuable content and helping you to push that out there. So they're the key things really on LinkedIn, but it is a blend of more one-to-one plus some of the other features like regular posting, articles. And when you actually think about that straight away within, I don't know, a week, if you're doing all of that stuff, how many touch points did we just get up? Post, 3 or 4 posts a week. A newsletter's gone out. DMs. We've had 7 touch points in a week, which is totally amazing. So do have a look at all of those different features that are on there, because that really will massively help you. Alpa?
I was going to say, from LinkedIn, from a hunting point of view, LinkedIn is very much not dead for that. But one of the things which people are doing a lot of, which I don't agree with, is, and Victoria, I'm sure you'll agree with me, is when they message you and they're selling you something when I don't know them, I'm not connected to them, and they're trying to sell me something, or trying to get a meeting in my diary, or trying to get me to get a meeting with them, using their links. I find that quite wrong, because going back to what Victoria's saying, I've not asked for it, I'm not ready for it. Why is it? So things like DMing, think about what you're doing in DMing. So when I'm going hunting in LinkedIn, I'm actually asking for help. So when I'm looking at people, I've done my research as to who my core customer is, what I'm looking for, and then I often will have my strategy usually is to reach out to them via LinkedIn and DM them, but actually ask them if I can have 5 minutes of their time, because I'm doing research, or I want to ask a question on something because I'm building a business plan, and I could really do with picking their brains as they are an industry expert. 9 times out of 10, they'll come back to you and they'll say, yes, I'll give you 5 minutes. We've had some massive wins with some big companies, including English Heritage, National Trust, CEO, people like that, using that methodology. So this is a direct sale. So it's still a touch point, it's still marketing, and I would want you to go back to your marketing teams if you have one, just verify the messages on brand with everything that they're saying. But you send that message out personally, and then you'll find people will be more than willing to give you 5 minutes. Another product that sits on top of LinkedIn, which is a very well-kept secret, is called Lusha. It's Lusha. It is a product that sits on top of LinkedIn. It's, I think, £90 a month or something like that. And basically, if I click on someone's profile, Lusha will open up on the right-hand side. And if that person's contact details are there, phone number, email addresses, anything like that, it will be listed on there. Because Lusha is GDPR protected and all the rest of it, and you're paying for it as a license, you can use it. And there's been some fantastic ways in which I've reached out to people through LinkedIn, through that way, when they haven't responded to my DMs, by sending them a text message or something via that platform. It's very powerful for sort of direct sales on LinkedIn, and it, is an invaluable piece of advice I can give to people. So Lusher. And also, I don't use, apart from Premium, I don't use Sales Navigator or any of those things, and I'm a salesperson. I find the Premium is more than enough. I'm happy to pay the £50 a month, and that just allows me to send out in messages to people that I might want to when I'm in hunting mode. But I don't actually have any of the additional things on there, because I think, if you use LinkedIn properly, then the £50 one is plenty for you to get value out of.
Thanks very much, Alpa. There's some good things going on in the chat, and I see Ben's put a very good link through to one of Victoria's blogs, and Stacey's kindly put the Lusher link in for you. I'd like to ask Toby to ask his question, because it was very much around sort of starting a whole leads process from scratch. What's your situation, Toby?
Yeah, hi, morning. Yeah, so we're coming out from a slightly different view, rather than, shall we say, a new company that's trying to work out where they are in the world. We're 25 years down the line, and I suppose we started a process last year of retention, I suppose is the best way of putting it, and ensuring that we have that solid base. So we started a monthly newsletter, HubSpot, kind of using free tools as much as possible. Now we're kind of at that stage of where we've started to build, I suppose you could call it, a base presence on social media, and sort of making sure everything's up to date. But we're trying to relaunch, if you like, to find the new customers, the ones that, as your natural cycle of your retained customers maybe start to drop off or change the systems they want to use, they move away. We deal in document management software. So you will get customers that move on to new platforms. So they will naturally move away as much as you might want to retain them. So it's kind of, how do you take what you've already got and start to move it forward? I suppose we were kind of struggling. I suppose we have this identity. So that's the key. We have an identity, and an identity we've had for 25 years, but it's not necessarily the right identity going forward. So there's a whole mindset change, I suppose, but it's, what advice do you have for that kind of, how do you start that process of where do we want to go when you've already got almost set in stone, the 10 commandments of this is what we are? It's like, yeah.
Absolutely. I think all successful businesses, established businesses, get kind of trapped in that situation, and you have to reinvent whilst also retaining. So Victoria, what do you think? What's the way? How do you do that dual speed approach to that, reaching out whilst also retaining?
Yeah, I mean, this is a massive question, Toby. I'm so excited that you're coming along on Thursday to our session, because this is certainly going to help you out with this. We've had to do this ourselves in our business. COVID struck, and whilst we had a very, very solid business doing what we did, face-to-face training and coaching and whatnot, we had to change the face of our business and do a lot of things differently, and grow an online model, which every cloud has a silver lining, because of course with an online model comes lots and lots of benefits. I think the main thing really is it comes back to starting from scratch in terms of that definition around, okay, what are we actually trying to achieve? And coming back to that point of looking at who is it that we're actually trying to attract? Coming back to what we said earlier around understanding exactly what that customer is all about, what makes them tick, what is it they're trying to achieve, and how your goals and what you're trying to put out and who to actually align together so that actually works. So I think it's coming straight back to scratch and looking at it from a fresh perspective, because sometimes it's really easy when you've got an established business to always try and think about how can we make it fit in with what we've already got, and that's not always the best solution for how you're trying to move forward. So I think that it is a matter of starting with a fresh piece of paper, first of all. And, if there were no boundaries, if there was nothing, what is it that we could actually do? And then you can look at overcoming some of those gaps that exist in there, or overcoming some of those key areas that need to be tackled. But I do think that that's what it comes back down to, is starting and looking at who the customer type is, what they actually need to achieve, what you need to achieve, and then working out your marketing strategy and your sales strategy around that. And then you can see how the two propositions actually align and whether or not they do. It is possible to be serving two different types of customer at once. It is possible to do that from a marketing perspective. It's possible to do that from a sales perspective, but you have to make sure that you've got your definition there, and making sure that as a company, you are very, very clear on the direction. Because when you've got more than one thing on the go, your time and your energy and your resource gets massively divided. So you have to take some big decisions there around how you do it. And what we always say, because we have many customers that have a lot going on underneath the surface, underneath one brand. And what we always say is you've got to not necessarily compartmentalize and switch off something, but you have to go all in on one thing for a period of time. Now, the halo effect will naturally glow over everything else. But unless you're all in on one thing and really going for it, you just get divided and you're no longer heading in your direction. You're pulled in so many different directions that you end up getting nothing done. So I think that Thursday's Kickstart Your Marketing session that you're attending, Toby, will massively benefit you. So I'm looking forward to seeing you at that. Alpa, coming over to you, have you got a view on that?
Oh, definitely. Do your research, Toby. Yeah, you're entering into new markets. So one of the things which I say is understand your market. What is the industry? What are its pain points? Here's an interesting one. What is the customer actually buying? Okay. So, for example, if I go to B&Q and I buy a drill, I'm not actually buying a drill, I'm buying a hole. Okay. So when someone says I'm buying software, no, they're not buying software. They're buying something else. So once you understand, so one of the things is, look at I do something called PESTLE, which is political, economical, social, technological, legal, and environmental. So that's what that is, looking at an industry with the PESTLE and then SWOT and all the other things, because I really want to understand whether that industry is where I should go hunting. So you do your research and really understand that market, what's growing, what's the pain points, what's its worth, who are the competitors already in there, what are they doing marketing wise, who are their customers, and then you need to ask a lot of questions. I mean, because what we're talking about is you're building a plan to do marketing, but actually I think you need to understand before you spend any money on whether an industry is the right industry for you to even be in the first place. And a lot of small businesses go hell bent down there, whereas I want to hold them back and say, hang on, whoa. Yes, we think wildebeest is over on that hill, but let's climb to the top of the hill, let's check the landscape, let's see where the mines are, let's see where things are before we go down there, because it could end up being costly, time consuming, and you don't get the results that you're looking for. So my key points to this is do your research, understand the market in which you're looking to enter. What is the customer actually buying? Are you solving any of their pain points and their needs? Is the sector growing? Do your PESTLE, do your SWOT, put an analytical head on it first of all, before you do anything else. And the other side of that is it will give you a really good idea. So I'm doing this for one of my clients. They are in a very highly saturated market. Okay. And so one of the things we did was I spent about 6 weeks looking at different industries. Now, I was looking at something and guess what came up? It was agriculture and farming. Now, I was not even thinking about agriculture and farming because it's not one of your obvious ones, but when you do your research properly, you're pulling on different strings. Now, for them as a technology company, it's a great place for them to go hunting. Why? Because, and if we go back to the PESTLE, politically, they are being forced by the government to take on more technology because of Brexit and all these things. So there's a goal there for them. From an economical point of view, Brexit means there's less people coming over to pick things. So that means that they need to use technology. So what does that technology then encompass? From a social point of view, for all of those things we looked at, and this market suddenly came out as being, what? This is something. And then we looked and there was no competitors in there because no one's thought of it. Yeah. So all of a sudden we've got a massive open goal So then when we do the direct sales, which is linked back to the marketing, you know, I'm going to farming events. I had welly boots on and I was in Kent Farm Show talking to farmers. I'm continuing my research. That is before I've done any social media. I've done any other sales strategy. I've done anything. I've really just understood the market. And now I've got some real things that I can hang my hat on and say, we know it's a growing market. We know it's worth, you know, 150 billion. We know that over the next 5 years, they've got to move everything from the way they are into a full technological background. We know that they're struggling. We know that this has happened. Right, this is an area. And now I'm doing a sales and marketing plan based on that knowledge. So before I've spent a penny, I've done that research, and that is invaluable. And then when you speak to someone like Victoria and me, we've got all of those facts in a row. And then it's so much more easier to say, right, actually in this industry, social media isn't going to work because they're not in social media. So what do we need to do from a marketing point of view that's going to be a better way to get them to engage? Yeah, not every industry, and Victoria's going to kill me for this, is on social media. And not every industry will be on LinkedIn or all of those things. So understand your market and where they hang out, because that will also change your sales and marketing message.
Thanks very much, Alpa. That's really good. And I'm sure that's helped Toby. We've got one, I think, final question. Actually, it's going to be coming in from Sandy. But what I'd like to do is line Victoria and Alpa up to think about their 3 top tips from everything you've heard today. What are the big takeaways that you think? And whilst you're listening to Sandeep's question, and no doubt answering it as well, jot those 3 top tips down. And Alpa, your comment about it being an open goal, as a Spurs fan, I can tell you there's no such thing as an open goal. So please, here we go. Sandeep, fire away.
Morning, Ross. Thank you very much. Morning, ladies. Thanks so much. Great presentations. It's not so much as a question as a comment I made very early on about having a structure and a strategy. I think everything that you've answered today shows that the components of actually having a clear strategy and a vision of where you're going, a relevance of purpose, you know, and people, your customers have to recognize that. My reservations about LinkedIn haven't changed, but Victoria, I agree with you. It has to be a blended approach. And Claire, your comments also resonate with me. But I think there's so much uncertainty and apprehension out there that people are a little bit scared. Now, for me, it's not, there's nothing wrong with being scared. It's how you deal with it and how you actually address those things. And often people are worried about their reputation, but that's because reputations are what people think of you. Remember, it's your character that defines you really and what you do and deal with it. That's all I will say. But in all the answers you've given, you've actually given indications of what a structure should be, the strategy should be, because as Alpa has just said, it's your business and it's you've got to narrow it down and focus on what's relevant to your business and not think of every business out there, because not all businesses are going to be relevant to you.
Yeah, thanks, Sandeep. Victoria, have you got any sort of summation around that in terms of what? Because I do know that one of the issues that we as a chamber, and I think all businesses have, is lining up and directing your resources to achieve those best optimal outcomes. But Victoria, what do you think?
Yeah, no, I agree there. And I think that one of the things that Sandeep said there is really important, and that is to kind of like run your own race. You have to do what's right for you and your business. But just be open-minded and be willing to look at new things for new results. I think that for everybody, planning is absolutely critical. Everyone needs to know what they're trying to achieve so that they're always moving in the same direction. They're not kind of taken off course by shiny new objects. So yeah, no, that's my view on it. That's not part of my 3 things for summarising, is it, Ross? Because I've got plenty more to say.
No, you'll be getting a chance to do that.
All right, fine.
Answering Sandeep's important question is the first thing, Victoria.
No, I think it's a really good summary, Sandeep. Yes.
Yeah, cool. Alpa, have you got anything to add?
Yeah, definitely. What I just said to Toby before, do your research, understand your market. Your business is your own. Only you know where you want to take it, but have some real clear goals. You know, sales and marketing is one element of your business. It's a very important element, but it's one part of your business. So, you know, whatever your future plans are, it is about planning, it's about goal setting, and it's about measuring. How do you know you've hit that goal? That's the other thing. So, you know, whether that's in sales, marketing, in any other part of your growth journey, it's important that you do that. So planning is important. Do your research, understand your market. You're spot on all of those things, and run your own race. Though keep an eye on your competitors. There's a famous saying that the person who said it eludes me, but it's like there's a reason there's a small rear view mirror. You glance backwards occasionally, but your windscreen is bigger because you should always be facing forward and looking for that next thing. But glance back occasionally, because there's still stuff you can learn from what you've done in the past, and not everything is not everything is wrong and not everything is right. So what you want to do is just keep looking and keep an eye on those competitors, but don't sort of bust a gut if they're doing something massive or if they've had a big cash injection. You keep running your race for yourself.
Absolutely. Okay, then. Thank you very much, Alpa. Victoria, have you got your three takeaways just to help our
Yeah,
audience?
I'll try and roll my 6 into 3 then. So here we go. Number 1, and I'll try and make it number 2 as well. So with marketing and sales, if it's not in the diary, it doesn't get done. It's as simple as that. You can walk away from here today and go, Alpa made some great points, Victoria made some great points, great questions from the audience. You can choose to do nothing, or you can take 1 or 2 things forward from today and implement them and get better results. It's as simple as that. But you've got to allow time for it. So if it's not in the diary, it doesn't get done. So that's my first thing. Secondly, we've talked a lot about foundations today. We've talked about making sure you know your product, you know your customer, you know what their pains are, you know how to talk to them, we've done a lot of foundational stuff today. Foundations are important. And what I would say is if you are not familiar and you don't have those marketing foundations in place yet, you have to get them first. There is no point going off spending money on advertising, doing your PR, rehashing your website if you've not got the foundations laid. So make sure that your foundations are at the core of your marketing. If you don't even know what they are yet, speak to me and Alpa, we can help you with that. Next up is consistency. Nothing happens unless you have momentum behind your marketing. It's almost like, dominoes? It's almost like whacking some dominoes down and you see them all falling, but one wasn't close enough to the next one and it falls flat. That's what happens with your marketing. You need to keep the dominoes going, and that means consistency and having that momentum behind it. So, and again, comes back to putting the time aside for it, making sure that you're doing what you need to do every single week. And my one tip for that is to have on your to-do list. Who has a to-do list? Just pop your hand up for me if you have a to-do list. Yeah. So on that to-do list, I want you to write one question at the top of it, and that is, what am I doing today to win new customers? Just pop that on your to-do list. What am I doing today to win new customers? Is a second one for you. What am I doing today to love my existing customers? Because of course it's much better to keep your existing customers happy and paying you than acquiring new ones. It's cheaper. So there are 2 questions actually that I would recommend that you have on your to-do list. And the last thing I would say is remember that marketing and sales is an ecosystem. Nothing works as an island. Social media is not a little island on its own that you just do and something happens. Email marketing is not a little island that you just do something and something happens. Equally with sales, you have to connect them up. You have to make connections between them all. And that means understanding that funnel and what activity you need to be doing at that awareness stage to drive them through to consideration, to blah, 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 down to sales and action. Okay. So think about your marketing funnel and making sure that you're always putting new ones in the top, because if you're not putting new ones in the top, by the time you pan them out, it's almost like shaking for gold. You only be left with 1 or 2. So the more you put, it's a numbers game, the more you put in the top, the more comes out at the bottom. Quality ones though, of course. And last but not least, I think I'm on about 6 now, Ross, and I do apologize. But remember, value-driven marketing, value-driven sales, value-driven conversations, whether they're online or offline, it's all about value. How can you enhance the life of your ideal customer? So that's it from me. Thank you very much, Ross.
Thanks very much. Alpa, you've got literally 2 minutes. I'm a stickler for timekeeping. You've got 2 minutes at the most to be able to cover off your, hopefully 3 top tips.
Thanks, Victoria. You owe me. You took my limelight. Okay, no, so I've got 3. Number 1 is have fun. Sales doesn't need to be hard work. Life is challenging enough as it is. That has been for so long. So I have never sold a day in my life. I have made a lot of friends, I've had a lot of fun, and I've brought in a lot of business. So I've never sold a day in my life. Number 2 is know your customer. What are they really buying? Remember the drill? I'm not buying a drill, buying a hole. If you can understand what your customer is looking for, what their pain points are, and everything else, and they will buy from you if you communicate properly. Okay, know your market, do your research. If you're entering a new market or even an existing market, what has changed? Just because you've been in that market for the last 20 odd years doesn't mean that the industry itself hasn't changed. What new things are coming up? What new competitors are coming up? What are they doing? Are they going to shake up that industry sector? All of those things have an impact on your sales. Number 3 is failure to plan is planning to fail. Honestly, if you've got a sales plan and a marketing plan, follow it. Don't just write it and stick it in a drawer and say, I've done that now, right, that's done for another year. No, not only do you need to follow it, but every month you need to ask yourself some questions. What worked? What didn't work? What did we learn? What should we do again? What shouldn't we do again? Did this bring in the results we were looking for? So the measurement is so important. So my 3 points are have fun, know your customer, and failure to plan is planning to fail.
Thanks very much. Finally, Victoria and Alpa, and thank you so much for being a superb panel today. What can you offer those on the call today in terms of a special offer for them to be able to get in touch with both of you, maybe working together to make sure that they are able to support their business? Is a special offer that you can make out to the audience?
Definitely, yes.
Absolutely. So Alpa and I, we have a really great session that we would happily have with anybody individually. It is actually a marketing and sales success session. So from my point of view, I'll be supporting you with that marketing side, looking at where you are now, where you want to get to, and the gaps that exist. And Alpa, from your side?
From my side, I'll be looking at the business holistically, and I'll be looking at how you can use the sales to increase that profitability or whatever it is that you're looking to do, and actually help you to put together a sales plan that will align with the marketing plan, and think about how you put the two together, and also answer any burning further questions on sales issues that you might be having.
Superb. So that's our offer. It will be about 40 minutes. So if anyone wants to take that up, obviously, I guess Ben's the best port of call. Let Ben McDonald know, and we'll happily book that in with you.
Yeah, definitely.
Ben will put this out to everybody so that it can be taken up, make it as easy as possible. And Ben or Stacey, when is our next Chamber of Solutions event? Do you have that to hand?
Yeah, our next Chamber. Can you all hear me? So I'm using headphones. Perfect.
Yeah.
Sorry. It's 2022. I'm still worrying about it. Our next Chamber of Solutions is our first live Chamber of Solutions event, and it is from Portico House in Portsmouth. It's part of the Portsmouth and South Coast Business Week, and is around transformation in manufacturing success. So if you fancy a jolly and want to see how we operate this live, then please do join us on the 26th of April.
Thank you so much, Ben. Thanks everybody for attending. It's 1 minute past 11. We're running late, so we've got to move on. You've got to get on to put into action all of these brilliant things that you've learned today. And please let us know how you get on with them. And we really look forward to seeing you at the next Chamber of Solutions and our other networking and other events. It's been fabulous. Thank you so much, Victoria. Thank you, Alpa. And thank you everybody for attending. Take care all.